Hello, everybody, and welcome back. It is Friday. It is 2 p.m., and of course, you know that means it is time for Alley Talk. I am Kyle Fisher here representing the Phillies squad over at Philly Sports Network. Really appreciate you joining me. For those who are returning, regular viewers of the program, we really appreciate you returning. Anybody first-timer, I would say what to expect today. Not a hot take show, not a hot take artist kind of guy. I like to look at things in realistic ways. I may get a little excited. I may get a little animated. But overall, you're going to hear actual, straightforward Phillies talk here on Alley Talk, part of Philly Sports Network. Make sure you are checking out phillysportsnetwork.com for all your Phillies needs all season long. Our guy, Chris Babos, just put out a wonderful preview for this weekend's series in San Diego. We're going to get into some San Diego Padres series talk. We're going to talk about the San Francisco Giants and that rough series that the Phillies had over there at Oracle. And obviously, we're going to get into some of the latest and greatest when it comes to the rumor mill this time of year as we approach the July 31st trade deadline across Major League Baseball. Some big articles from guys like Matt Gelb and Jeff Passan came out this week linking them to several different superstars across the league. Obviously, we know Dave Dombrowski has swung it big in the past, and rumors have it in Matt Gelb's article on The Athletic that they may be aiming to do so again, maybe making up for some missed opportunities in the offseason, if you will. Being willing to trade from their top-end prospect pool, maybe something they haven't done in the last couple of years, but knowing that the core of their team is getting a little bit past their prime years, if you will, losing some guys at the end of the season who have been key to their success. So we'll dive into that shortly. If you saw the thumbnail before we joined, yes, we will be touching on the big one that Jeff Passan mentioned in his ESPN article. But for now, we want to take you back real quick. Make sure that you're caught up on all the latest and greatest from this week in Phillies action. Phillies and Giants. Wow, what a series. My goodness. Really rough go of things for the Phillies in the first two games. A lot of defensive miscues, a lot of not hitting with runners in scoring position, a trend that seems to be continuing. The game one, they felt like they may have been robbed, might not be the right word, but really had a rough outing from umpire Phil Cuzzi behind the plate, someone who's actually usually rated pretty well, is getting a little bit up there in age, but is actually respected across the league. Phillies have had some rough outings with him earlier this season as well, this one in particular, a rough go of it. Let's jump into the first game so you know exactly what I'm talking about. So first game in the series, Christopher Sanchez on the mound, not a National League All-Star. Christopher Sanchez somehow, despite his stellar numbers, 7 innings, strong innings, only 7 hits, 1 walk, his first walk since June 8th. David Peterson was named to the All-Star team over him. That's a story for another time. Anyway, 7 hits, 1 walk, 1 earned run, 8 strikeouts, 29 straight innings without a walk. The guy has been absolutely stellar. One of the best ERAs in all of baseball. Again, we'll have a nice break instead of being traveling to Atlanta with his teammates Zach Wheeler and Kyle Schwarber. Again, despite that great performance, they do end up losing the game 3-1. They went 0 for 6 with runners in scoring position. That took them to an 0 for 24 streak across a few games there. Sunday, we dove into how rough it was on Sean Brace's show on the Daily Ticket. If you caught me on the Fantastic Sports Show, we talked about how rough that was. Sunday's game, 0 for 10 with runners in scoring position, struck out 9 of those at-bats. So maybe not as bad, but still going 0 for 6, extending that streak to 24 straight at-bats with runners in scoring position without a hit. Not going to get things done here at the Major League level. I don't care how good you are. Phil Cuzzi was pretty rough there in the 8th inning. He was rough on Harper a little bit earlier in the game. Rough in the 8th on him. Umpire scorecard gave the Giants almost a 1.5 run advantage as a result of Cuzzy's calls, and they only won the game by 2 games. So obviously made a big difference there. If you saw Orion Kerkering, yes, he did put some damage on himself, hit 2 batters, but had Matt Chapman struck out probably 3 times. Maybe one was borderline, so at least twice, if not 3 times. And then Chapman delivers the first single to drive in the first run. So a little tough outing for him. Kerkering pulled so they would have him available. Then he came in sore the next day anyway, wouldn't be available the next night, and we'll get into why that matters when we get to that, when we get to game 2. But in Matt Gelb's report Monday after the game, he did mention that the feeling in the clubhouse, a lot of fans were upset that Rob Thomson wouldn't go out there and defend his guys, right? And this is a clubhouse of professionals. They know that Rob Thomson has their back. Is there some rough moments here and there? Of course there is. That's going to happen in any clubhouse. Talking about the Castellanos benching earlier in the year and Max Kepler speaking up about maybe not being played to his expectations for when he signed the free agent deal. Again, not necessarily all on Rob Thomson. But he defends those guys constantly, whether it's through the media, whether it's behind closed doors. He's always looking out for his club, and he knows that they're veterans and they understand the game as much as he does, that you run the risk with some umpires, and apparently because he has this reputation, that if you get uppity with him about his calls, you may be facing some retaliation later. And whether that's on purpose or whether it is a subconscious thing, regardless, you don't want to run the risk that you're going to have this guy on the staff. It's the beginning of the series. Not only does he have to call balls and strikes the rest of the game, you're going to have him on the umpiring staff the next 2 days. Those guys look out for each other. So it's, in their mind, the smart move was to back off, let him be. You saw some comments from the bench, but do you really want your manager to go out there, get run, yell at the guy, have maybe a player get run as well, because now everybody's getting hyped because they want to defend their manager now? It's a compounding issue that they avoided by not going out there and causing a scene. Rob Thomson, not really the type of guy to cause a scene. He's not as fiery as Charlie or Larry. It's, you're talking about two pretty strong personalities, and Thompson's just not that. He's a great baseball mind. He's a great baseball manager, but he's not Charlie Manuel. He's not Larry Boa. Those guys are just different attitudes, and he knows how to tell his guys and show his guys that that he has their back, and they know that. When you speak to those guys, they will tell you exactly that. So it was a little bit tough of an outing on Monday night. Obviously, you don't want to. We talked about this last week, Chris Babos and I, who was on the show with me last week, about how you don't want to feel like you're wasting strong outings from your starting staff. And Chris brought up a great point. I see this comment on Twitter a lot, and I know that that's just a microcosm of the fan base. It's not how everybody thinks and feels, but you see a comment or hear a comment often that's like, we can't waste a great outing from so-and-so. We can't waste a great outing here. And one side effect of having one of, if not the best starting staff in all of baseball, is you don't win every game. Nobody is going to, you're not going to go out there and win 120 games and only lose your bad starts, right? It's near impossible to do that. The game of baseball is crazy. I don't care how good you are. You could take the best offense in the universe, put them with this Philly staff, and they're still going to waste some starts. So that is a side effect of having as strong a starting staff as the Phillies do, is that you're going to waste an outing like this on occasion. The question really should be framed as, how many great outings against other top-tier teams can you afford to waste, right? It feels worse when you waste a good start against the Pirates or the White Sox or the Rockies. That feels worse because that's a team that you should handle with ease, but you can handle them with ease even in games where you don't have your best stuff as a starting pitcher. You should be able to, on paper, at least with this Phillies team, do that. It really ends up being worse when you when you waste it against another team that you're competing with for a potential playoff spot, like you are with the San Francisco Giants. So this one stings a little bit more for me than maybe the one that we were referring to a couple last week or the week before. Is, at the end of the season, there's no guarantee you're going to win your division. At the end of the season, these games against these other top tier teams matters, and that's one that you feel could come back to haunt you later. You don't want to waste good outings. I understand that, but it is a byproduct of having an incredible staff. Is you're going to waste some of these really good starts because that's just the nature of baseball. Like I said, the big concern for me is when you end up in a situation where you're missing out on some important wins against teams that you're going to be competing with for seeding and things like that. So this one did sting a little bit. It stung even more because of the way that Game 2 went. We'll get into that in a moment. We're talking about great outings. We're talking about the guy, Christopher Sanchez, probably the fastest rising star on the Phillies, probably everybody's favorite pitcher, not named Zach Wheeler in Philadelphia. Sanchez, he's been absolutely a godsend. 7-2 record, 259 from Sanchi, as his manager affectionately calls him. He more than deserved a nod for the 2025 All-Star game. He more than deserved to be headed to Atlanta after San Diego instead of taking some time with his family. Now, he will enjoy it. He has earned the time off as well, but that nod is pretty important too. Has the 10th best ERA in the majors, 4th best ERA in the National League, and he doesn't get put in the All-Star team. Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. 14th most strikeouts with 116. His whip is 1.13. That's 22nd best in the majors. So he's among the league leaders in almost every single category you can imagine. Of course, there's pitchers on that roster that are as good as him. Some even better, right? We talked about Wheeler. There's Paul Skeens. Yamamoto got the nod, even though he's not going to be participating in the game. And then, of course, you have the legacy pick, whatever they're calling it, for Clayton Kershaw. But that it's a nice ode to some of the guys who are on their way out. But these guys do deserve the recognition. And one thing that that these things exist, but Juan Soto, they asked, one of the Mets reporters asked him about how he feels about not getting the honor, and he was like, I feel bad I'm missing. That's a lot of money I'm missing out on. I felt I more than deserves it, and I'm not getting a bonus. And a lot of players, and I don't know if Sanchez has this in his contract, but a lot of players have bonuses for All-Star game appearances, winning home run derbies, getting awards throughout the year, whether it's Player of the Month, whether it's Cy Young votes, anything like that, finishing at a certain standing in the MVP voting, anything along those lines. So not only is it something where he feels like he missed out on this honor, but he also misses out on a potential bonus. And as a result, his agent has even been speaking up. His agent mentioned that there's people who maybe shouldn't deserve to be in over him, how good he's been, and wasn't named to the game, not even as a replacement. So replacements are being made. The frustration among fans has grown. Sanchez's agent is chiming in. Like I said, Juan Soto mentioned that the financial bonuses being missed out on is a big deal. Two guys who did get added as replacements recently. I think that most people would agree that Andrew Abbott from the Reds probably deserved it. He's having the best year of his career, 2.07 ERA. Was under 2, I believe, until he faced the Phillies over this past weekend. He did get named eventually, and again, he more than deserved it. He's been having an incredible season. The big question mark is Drew Peterson from the Mets. It is a career year for him. His 3.06 ERA is great, but it's a little bit lesser than all the other pitchers who are on the roster, including Sanchez, who's not on the roster. There was one reliever named as a replacement, Robert Suarez. He's not having his best year, so that one also a little confusing. But I don't know if there was fatigue from there being 8 Phillies last season. Maybe they wanted to limit and give some other teams a chance to rep this year. I don't know what the case was, but regardless, this guy definitely earned a spot. So we'll have to see how that looks at the end Well, I mean, we'll have to deal with that at the time. If I don't think they're naming any more replacements at this point. Maybe if someone comes up with an injury over the weekend, there's still a chance, but not much we can do about it now, unfortunately. Sanchez, great outing, great season so far. Definitely deserved a look, and he will get a look in the future because the guy has just rapidly improved over the last 2 seasons. One moment. A little bit of a surprise that Sanchez wasn't named to the All-Star game. Speaking of surprises, Game 2 against the Giants out in San Fran. Felt like it might be more of the same from the Phillies offense. A lot of question marks going into. I was on Sean Brace's show on Fox PHL, The Gambler, earlier this week, and he thought, hey, you got to take the over because Taijuan Walker's starting the game, making his first start in over a month. And John Fisher, one of the commenters, chimed in and mentioned that might actually be the perfect place. Big outfield. One of his big issues has been the home run ball. So wasn't really sure what to expect. I said maybe take the under, and I ended up being right. Taijuan made a great start, his first start since May 30th. That outing on May 30th may have been his worst start of the season, going 4 innings, 4 earned runs. He goes 4 again, only 1 earned run. This weekend, this past Tuesday. So really strong outing from him. I did like one thing that I noticed. So in the pen, any game where he had given up an earned run, he also gave up a home run that outing. Sometimes it was 1 for 1. Sometimes it was a 1-run shot and another run. Sometimes it was a 2-run shot, whatever the case was. But the only time he gave up runs was the long ball. The last time he didn't allow a home run was that start on May 30th, didn't allow a home run while still giving up earned runs. So that's what on May 30th did that again today. As a starter, he's been reliable. There's no denying what he's brought to the team. You can be down on him. You can talk about the contract all you want. You can talk whatever you want to talk about. First off, the contract is a sunk cost. Let's get that out of the way right now. There's no changing what has been done. He was really strong in that first season. You signed him to be a middle to back end of the rotation arm. That's exactly what he was. Last year, obviously, a really, really rough time for the guy, and you had to feel for him because you saw the work that he was putting in. When you get to meet him and talk to him down at the ballpark, you really understand how much of a competitor this guy is and how frustrating it was for him that he wasn't seeing the results based on the work that he was putting in. But this season, he's got a 3.48 ERA in the starting rotation. And at times, Mick Abel had 2 good starts, but really fell off after that. Aaron Nola's been out of action for a little while. Ranger Suarez didn't start the season healthy, and this guy has been there every step along the way, a 3.48 ERA. And for all those people out there who want to say maybe he's just getting lucky, 3.96 FIP as a starter this season as well. Take luck out of it. The guy has been really strong in that role, and he's even managed to be okay as a reliever. Not his natural role. He only had 1 relief appearance before coming to Philadelphia in his career. A 3.71 ERA. He does have a 5.40 FIP, so maybe getting a little bit luckier. Those home runs, obviously, he's had, I wouldn't say luck, but a lot of them have been solo shots. So even with a strong number and a 3.71, that's what you want out of a guy who's mostly going to be a long man out of the pen, a guy who's going to give you 2 to 3 innings out of the pen. 3.71 is fine for me. A little bit unlucky, but again, it's a role that he's not super comfortable in. He's allowed more home runs in 24.1 less innings as a reliever than as a starter. So it's an adjustment period, and he's adjusted as well as he can. And if he can limit the long ball a little bit, he should be okay to go back to that role. It's something that Rob Thompson and the Phillies didn't necessarily want to put him through, is bouncing back from one role to the other. And he's done whatever the team has needed. His attitude is fantastic. Guy is a stellar teammate. Matt Strom said he's a top step kind of guy, and that he's one of the fiercest competitors he's ever met. Walker's a very nice guy when I've spoken to him, very calm. You can see that he doesn't get too emotional in his post-game interviews. And that being said, despite that, he is still one of the fiercest competitors on the mound. Once wants to be there for his team, wants to do anything that he can for this team to win. He understands that he has an opportunity here with Philly, and he is living up to what they need from him. It really has been. I think a lot of people expected it to be a lot worse than it has been this season, and Taijuan has done nothing but show up and do whatever the team has needed. At a time where they spent money to go get Jordan Romano to be a high leverage guy. Yes, Taijuan's not a high leverage guy, but that hasn't worked out. They brought in Joe Ross basically to do the job that Taijuan Walker is doing right now, and Taijuan Walker has taken over those innings from Joe Ross. There's going to be an adjustment period when you've been a starter as long as he has without really making any relief appearances. And the guy has done everything that you could ask of him this season. So people need to give Taijuan his flowers a little bit more because the guy really has shown up for this Phillies squad and done exactly what they needed and asked of him. So a really good outing for him. Tough going at the end. We're going to get to that in a moment. It would have been easy for him to become disgruntled at any point, but Taijuan staying focused, staying in line, and doing what the club needs of him. So really strong outing. Another 1-1 game late into the game on Tuesday. Top of the seventh, Brandon Marsh comes up, pinch hitting for Johan Rojas. Big pinch hit for him. Kyle Schwarber smacks a 2-run shot into McCovey Cove. Little splash down for the DH, and unfortunately, that was not enough. It felt really good in the moment. They took a 2-run lead. I went to bed immediately. I don't even know if I reached REM sleep, to be honest with you. The ninth went off the rails a little bit. Aforementioned Jordan Romano comes in to clean up in the eighth. They send him back out there for the ninth, mostly because Orion Kirkering came in complaining of soreness on Tuesday. Rob Thompson has tried to avoid this situation in the past. I've asked him in the past straight up why, when Alvarado would come in and do mop-up duty at the end of an inning, maybe throw 7 or less pitches in that first inning, why wouldn't he come out for the next inning as well? And he said there's a big emotional dump at the end of that. At the end of when you come in middle of an inning, stressful situation, even if you're only throwing a little bit, high stress moment, and you let all those emotions out, it's hard to get ramped back up again. So Romano got out of some trouble in the eighth, goes back out for the ninth, and it was not a pleasant ending. Giants win on a walk-off inside the park home run, bounces off of a angled wall in right center field, getting past Brandon Marsh. First walk-off inside the Parker since 2016, the first in San Francisco history since 2013. Patrick Bailey, the catcher, was the one who hit the walk-off home run. He became just the third catcher ever to hit a walk-off inside the park home run, and the first since 1926. So a historic walk-off for San Francisco. Unfortunately, Philadelphia on the wrong side of that one. Nobody wants to be a part of history when you're not the ones being celebrated for it, and unfortunately, Philly was in that situation Tuesday night. Woo! Thanks for bearing with me, guys. Need the water a little extra today. Third game, a complete turnaround from what we saw the first two games. I couldn't believe how strong they looked. My brother was actually in town visiting a friend, went to the game. Bryce Harper breaks out finally. It was a 13-0 drubbing at the hands of the Phillies offense. Harper goes 4 for 4, 3 doubles and a homer. If any other ballpark, it probably would have had 2, if not 3 home runs. He had a few that landed just short of the fence out there in left center field. It's great to see Bryce back, especially being able to go the other way with the ball. And I mean, I don't want to speak for them, but it almost felt like a FU game. Like, it almost feels like they collectively, now there was no closed door meeting, no one's reporting anything, but it almost felt like after the first 2 games they said, we're the Green D Phillies. Like, we're Nick Castellanos and Bryce Harper and Trey Turner and Kyle Schwarber, like, we are a star-studded lineup. Let's go beat the crap out of these guys. And that's exactly what they did. They made sure they didn't get swept like that Houston series. Absolutely delivered. Like I said, Bryce, that was so needed from that guy. He had 2 doubles in the 8th inning. It was a pretty close game. It was like a 4-run game going into the 8th. They ended up winning 13-0. It was absolutely incredible. Like I said, my brother was in attendance. He said in that 8th inning, there seemed to be like a shift in the atmosphere a little bit out there. So it was nice to see the bats break out in a big way. Another game where they did a lot of damage against the bullpen, but sometimes that's what you need. If you're patient enough to run the starter quickly, you can really take advantage of some teams' bullpen. So it was nice that he was able to do that. It's to leave those first 2 games behind with a little bit of momentum, going to San Diego, not only a team that they've had a lot of success against, but they've had success in San Diego as well. I think they haven't lost a series to the Padres in quite a while. I have to go back. I did tweet it out when the Padres were in Philadelphia a couple weeks ago, so I'll try and find that one for us before we move topics. But they have taken care of San Diego both in the regular season and the playoffs quite handily. So to see them get some good vibes, have a day off, a travel day, go down to San Diego and relax a little bit before starting that series tonight, that's got to be a good feeling for them. Like I mentioned, at Philadelphia SN, at C Babos Writes, our guy Chris Babos did a nice little preview for the game. So definitely take a look at, a preview for the series, the weekend series down in San Diego. So take a look at that if you haven't done so already. I'll make sure to tweet the link out as well. Sorry, little cough break. Okay. Big game, and obviously the biggest moment coming out of it is Bryce Harper. You needed him to be back. This feels like a coming out party. This feels like he's back. Obviously, the wrist is something they're going to have to manage, and he said that when he first came back from the injured list. He never said that he was fully healthy. He said that he felt like he wasn't making any more progress toward getting fully healthy. So he was like, well, we might as well just come back and see what we can do. Had a little bit of a slow start, maybe trying to feel things out at the plate. They've given him maybe some days off that he wouldn't normally have had he not been dealing with the wrist injury. And they're going to have to manage it. That's just what they're going to have to do to keep him healthy, to keep this lineup healthy the rest of the way. So don't be surprised if you see some days off, but not only was he that good at the plate, he was feeling himself afterwards. If you didn't hear the quotes, the guy was I don't know how to describe it, in like the most matter-of-fact, non-cocky way. He said the most cockiest thing you could imagine. He said, I mean, I'm really good. I really am. I don't want to put that out there and everybody goes, oh, what's he talking about? But I know when I'm going well, I'm one of the best in baseball. Like I said, I'm healthy, I'm strong, I feel great. It's just putting myself into plus counts. I haven't done that. You guys have seen that. I haven't done that. I feel stronger than ever. I feel like today being able to go oppo and do those things anywhere else, I might have 3 homers, right? Those are the things that you think about. That is how good he is feeling at the moment. And for him to feel healthy, that's an amazing feeling. He didn't say that when he first came back. To feel this strong right now is a good sign for him. They still will be managing it, so don't be surprised if he has a couple of days off that maybe you didn't expect. But they needed a healthy Harper back in that lineup to show what they can truly do. It is really hard to pitch around all these guys when Harper is protecting them in the middle of that lineup. Already the showman. We all know what he can do at his best. So to see him back feeling good, hopefully he can feel good the rest of the way for the Phillies. Since they're signing, his OPS is higher than Manny Machado. Speaking of the Padres, he's been better than the other guy who signed that year in 2019, even though he's missed a significant number of games. They need him to be healthy for this stretch run, and at least he's feeling healthy right now. So we'll see how closely and how careful they are with him down the stretch. On top of that, obviously, the offensive breakout, but uh, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that they didn't waste another great start from starting pitching. We talked about wasting opportunities in the first two games. Well, they didn't waste this one. Jesus Luzardo, 7 innings scoreless outing, bounced back from his second worst two-start stretch of the season and his shortest outing of the season. He allowed 5 earned runs over 2 innings his last time out. So to bounce back in on the road and give his team that type of performance, especially after having to go with a deep bullpen game the day prior and having some struggles back there, it was awesome to see what he was able to do. So that about wraps things up for San Francisco. I know we weaved a lot of things in and out at the moment. I just want to do a little bit of a reset here, guys. You are watching Alley Talk here on Philly Sports Network. Thank you for those tuning in. See the numbers and the viewers jumping up. Really appreciate you guys. Feel free to hop in the comments. If you have any comments, any topics you want to talk about, I will put them up on the screen. We can dive into whatever you guys want to talk about, Phillies or baseball related. Make sure you give us a follow at Philadelphia SN. All of our stellar coverage throughout the season. We will let you know always who's in the box covering the team live in person when they are home at Citizens Bank Park in South Philadelphia. Getting us some features. Just did a feature on Orion Kirkering earlier this week. Of course, it was the day where he ends up giving the runs up, but a little bit on his rise to being the go-to guy in the Phillies bullpen. So make sure you check that out. At Kyle Fisher 45 is where you can find me on all socials as well. If you're looking YouTube, it's Kyle Fisher Media. 45 was taken. But on X and Blue Sky at Kyle Fisher 45. A little reference throwback to my time as a beer vendor down at the stadium. I wore 45. So yeah, it's a nice. That's how long I've had Twitter. People is whatever 15 years now. So definitely go give me a follow along all season long. Follow Philly Sports Network for all your Phillies needs and coverage during the regular season and into the postseason. I know that was a lot of information about maybe games you watched already. We did a lot of weaving, a lot of bobbing, whatever you want to call it. We were, but we've buried the lead. If you did watch the show, if you were planning on watching the show and you saw the thumbnail, you saw that we are talking all things trades. Got to promote the show real quick, folks. There we go. And obviously it's that time of year where everybody is chiming in on their thoughts, who's available, who would be a good fit where. Everybody from our crew to The Athletic to CBS to whomever else, ESPN and beyond, they are all throwing their opinions out there on who could be a potential trade target for all of the top contenders across Major League Baseball. We have heard Ferguson in the YouTube comments. If we land Steven Kwan, I will go streaking through my neighborhood. One of my favorite non-Phillies players. Absolutely wonderful comment, wonderful name, wonderful pick. So whoever you are, Mr. Ferguson, first off, job well done. Love all the references here. I don't know if I want to know what neighborhood you live in, just in case they do land Steven Kwan. Don't know if I want to see that, but I'm sure somebody will take advantage and blackmail you with that video for the rest of your life. But yeah, we're going to get into it, man. Let's talk about some trade deadline conversations. Jeff Passan put out his piece earlier this week, finding the perfect trade deadline addition for every MLB contender. Obviously, the biggest need for the Phillies has been the bullpen. I do want to get into one thing before we really dive into who's available, because we did talk about on the teaser, on the thumbnail, it was Emmanuel Clase and Steven Kwan mentioned. They are both mentioned in that Passan piece. But we need to talk about the current state of the Phillies bullpen, right? They ultimately probably have 2-3 reliable arms. Everybody else can be a question mark. Jordan Romano has not really worked out as they had hoped. Joe Ross, same idea, really effective in Milwaukee last season after transitioning to the bullpen, not really working out the same way so far this season. Great dude, fierce competitor as well. Taiwan, he's not going to be a guy you're going to go to in high leverage. Strom, although he's one of the most reliable guys in the pen, not having the same type of season that he had last year. Tanner Banks having a really strong season. But guys you know that you can turn to in big moments, it's basically Strom and Kirkring, and that's about it. It's Romano, he's so hit or miss. I don't think you can really trust that. And one thing you heard from Dave Dombrowski earlier this season when he was on the Jason Stark's podcast, Starkville, also through The Athletic. When he was on with them earlier, he mentioned that, yes, we do have a surplus of starting pitching, and what they did with Boston and they've done with they did with Detroit back in the day, and the Rays did with David Price multiple times, is you can rely on some of those guys come postseason to give you innings out of the bullpen. And that's great. But they do need bullpen arms to help set themselves up for October. So obviously that's going to be where they target the most this coming deadline in the next few weeks. One thing that he mentioned, though, is that although he won't be available for the postseason, a guy that can help them once he's able to return is Jose Alvarado, the big left-hander. We know that he got suspended earlier this season for a positive test of a banned substance, a PED. He was absolutely stellar before that, one of the most reliable guys in that bullpen, a 2.70 ERA in 20 innings, strong 11.3 K per nine rate, lowest walks per nine rate of his career. The one thing, but the question is, how much of his success can be attributed to the PEDs? One of the things that the drug that he supposedly tested positive for was related to a weight loss drug that he was taking. He wanted to get in much better shape. He was having trouble doing it, working out himself. Took a weight loss drug that had the supplement in there. So he had been thinned down. He looked really strong. His velocity was up. His break was up. All those things really can come from your ability to throw the ball stronger, your arm to bounce back quicker, feel healthier. So those are some things that could definitely be impacted. And then on top of that, you have all this time off. He hasn't pitched in whatever it'll be half a season, essentially. I don't know what he's allowed to do. I know that he can work out, but he can't be on the team facility working out. He can't be working out with the team coaching and working on things specifically with the coaching staff and the catchers. And so, yes, of course, he's going to be working out, getting himself ready, but how can you expect him all this time off to step in and be the same guy that he was beforehand? Now, the one thing I'll say that leads me to believe that he could be a reliable arm down the stretch, not that he will be the same guy that he was when you lost him, but that career low in walks per nine really stands out to me, because you can see an uptick in velocity. You can see a easy way to stay strong in an outing, to bounce back easier as a result of certain PEDs, but location comes from repetition, comes from practice. Now, obviously, I just mentioned, I'd be remiss if I didn't tie that together with the fact that he hasn't pitched in a major league game in quite some time. So to expect his control to be immediately back, no. But if he did work on finding that control, that elusive control, that thing that really challenged him early in his career, before coming to Philadelphia especially, if he found that is what will give him that success late and really help this team late in the season. Again, he won't be able to pitch for them in the postseason, but you do need bullpen arms to survive the slog of the season. Maybe to get other guys used to pitching 8th and 9th, you use him in 6, 7, but there are still high intense moments in those earlier innings. If your starting pitcher isn't able to go that far, mop-up duty, whatever the case may be, having him back there will be an addition no matter what. It's just a matter of how effective can we expect him to be right off the bat. And that is why they probably need to go 2 arms, maybe even 3 arms if you're shopping at the lower end or the middle range of some of these pitchers. So again, anybody who's out there watching, make sure you throw your ideas for guys you would like the Phillies to target at the trade deadline in the chat. We're going to dive into the first guys, the guys that we teased all episode, and with the thumbnail, we're going to get into that potential Guardians trade that Jeff Passan mentioned in his article this week. I am talking about none other than Mr. Emmanuel Clase. A guy was absolutely lights out last season. Incredible year from Clase. May have been the best pitcher in baseball, starter, reliever. Doesn't matter. Last season, he had a stellar 2.22 ERA, 2.91 the year before, a 1.98 the year before that. His official rookie season, a 2.11. The guy was lights out for the last couple seasons. Still under team control for a couple years. I think it's through 2028 if you include the options. I am going to double check on that. Of course, I didn't have that written down. But Clase, after a slow start that turned a lot of people off early in the season, he has returned to form in a big way. He has a 3.12 ERA on the season, 19 saves, 40 strikeouts, and 40.1 innings. So he's averaging a strikeout an inning. His whip isn't crazy high, so he's not loading the bases he's not loading them regularly. He's not clogging the bases regularly, rather. Again, after a slow start, he's looked like probably the best reliever in baseball. He had a rough April. He allowed 10 home runs from the beginning of the month through April 30th. Since the end of April, he has a 1.33 ERA. He's still averaging a strikeout per inning, and he hasn't allowed a single home run since. So the guy has clearly figured out whatever his problem was early in the season. He will be the guy to talk about. I mean, if it's not for the Phillies, he will be the top target for most people when it comes to the bullpen at this coming deadline. At least him and maybe Johan Duran from the Twins. Yeah, so I finally found the contract. So he signed through this year and next year, 2 club options, each worth $10 million. They've been signing pitchers to one-year deals. He's still in his late 20s. He would be 30 at the end of that final club option. So even if it doesn't work out, you have the option to get out of the contract after the 26th season and after the 27th season, but a relatively inexpensive contract overall for potential team control through 2028. Passan goes on to mention that it could take one of your top prospects, and if it's going to do that, then why not see what Cleveland is willing to give up? And that would be, I'm going to bring the comment back up for a moment, but see if Stephen Kwan, left fielder, incredible fielder, not the pop that they need, but be a great table setter, guy who could lead off for you and bump everybody down a bit, maybe put Schwarber in a more advantageous position, having Kwan, Turner, Harper, Schwarber. A lot of lefties at the top, but you're going to face more right-handed pitching than not, so could be an interesting move if they wanted to go there. It would likely cost you a lot. He doesn't make a lot of money and is also under control for a few years. So to see, it was Clase and Kwan's under team control through 2027, and he's owed less than $20 million from now through that. So if they were willing to do it, it may take 2 of your top 3 guys. It may take an Andrew Painter, which I know they've said is off limits, but I think that everybody's probably on limit on the table for the right guy. You don't want to say, yes, we're definitely going to trade Andrew Painter because everybody's going to start and end their conversation with him. But if you could get it done with Mick Abel replacing him and maybe a couple extra people, we're talking about a huge trade here, right? Like if they were to bring in both of those guys in a trade, I think the focus would be Clase, but while you have them on the phone, you see what else you can get out of them to fill another hole, right? The left field has been a struggle this season for them after the signing of Max Kepler. You find out what they're willing to listen to. If they're willing to part with the guy, you throw some ideas out there. It would likely cost you Aiden Miller, maybe Justin Crawford. Maybe you could go like a Miller, Abel, and then 3 prospects. I'm thinking in the realm of I know that they're not the same caliber of players and not the exact same positions, but if you think about what the Dodgers gave up to get Max Scherzer and Trey Turner in 2021, only 1 year of control of Scherzer, another year of control of Turner after that stretch run where they first acquired him, and they gave up a starting major league ready catcher, a starting major league ready starting pitcher, and 2 or 3 more prospects on top. So you're talking about 2 high end prospects and still other highly rated prospects. So I mean, if we take a look at the Phillies, of course I have it on my other desktop, but Phillies top prospects. Let's go. So, even if you want to say that they're not going to trade Painter, let's look at their top 30. So you're probably talking, you're getting an outfielder you can probably afford to include Justin Crawford. So you're talking Justin Crawford, Mick Abel, maybe Griffin Burkholder, Arun Escobar, who second baseman is up to high A and just got added to the top 100 list for MLB. So maybe you're talking about 3 guys in the top 100, 2 guys in your own personal top 4 or 5, with Abel coming in at 5th. I mean, but you have a lot of team control there. So these are the types of deals that you're talking about. It could even cost you Miller, Crawford to start, and then we'll talk about who else, right? So Cleveland is going to identify who they want. They're great at identifying pitching. They've developed incredible pitching over the years. So if they think they can figure something out with Abel, maybe you can do Abel and Miller, Abel and Crawford just to start. You're probably looking at least one of those top 5 guys for Class A regardless. So if you're going to get that close, see how much more it would cost to get a guy like Quan on as part of that deal. So that would be an interesting take. Another interesting take for me, I mentioned this a couple weeks ago, and now the price is very high. If they're willing to pay down a little bit or include one of their elite relievers, another guy who could be a guy that they could target is one Byron Buxton, same division, center fielder for the Minnesota Twins. The guy has been stellar this season. The big struggle is we know what his injury history is. But let's take a look at what Buxton's doing this year. He's hitting .270, 20 homers, 53 RBIs. He has an OPS of 881. I mean, the guy has been lights out, but he is hurt a lot. This is like the first healthy season he's had in quite some time. I think the last time, I mean, he's had like one full season, in 2017. I mean, he only played 28 games in 18, 87 games in 19. He didn't even play the full 60-game season in 2020. He only played 39 games, 61 in 2021, 92 in 2022. The most games he played since 17 was last year, and it was only 102. So he seems to be healthy and finding his power stroke again. But he signed for a long time. He signed for a lot of money. And he's also the face of the Twins. He was willing to sign there despite them not being a top market team. It means something to him. He means something to them. So it's going to be a tough ask to get Buxton, to pry him away. You'd probably start your conversation with one of their guys in Griffin Jacks and Johan Duran, and then you say, hey, what would it take to get a Byron Buxton included? How much money are you willing to eat on that? And he's signed through 2028, making just over $15 million a season. 31, one of the better defensive center fielders. So you could start him in center field and go Brandon Marsh, who is Gold Glove caliber in the corners. So he could be your starting left fielder. You have to figure something out with Max Kepler there, whether he's moved to the bench or moved out, whatever the case may be. Or if you trust Marsh enough in center and have Rojas as the late inning defensive replacement, you could, in theory, have Buxton in the corner to help keep him healthier. In theory, a lot of times as center fielders begin to get hurt more, they move to the corners. We just saw this year with Mike Trout. He was one of the best center fielders in all of baseball and has moved to the corners just to help keep him healthy. So Buxton would be a really interesting one. Like I said, he's 31 years old. You'd have 3 more years, no options at 15. At, like I said, just over 15 mil a season. But he's having such a good season. He's giving slug in the outfield. That's what they need the most. Slugging in the outfield has plagued the Phillies for years. He could at least be a center fielder for a little while, and that would be it's been like a black hole out there. I like the guys who have played out there. They're nice guys. They're nice players, but it's just not. It's been an issue for them for a long time. Let's see. Position. Just want to look at their rankings for outfield. Is there an outfield option? Just doing a little quick live search for you guys. Of course, everybody loves this when the host just blacks out for a moment. Okay, so here we go. Phillies a 696 OPS from their outfield. That ranks them 23rd in all of baseball. Their slugging percentage, 382. Look at the Yankees, whatever. They have the MVP and Aaron Judge, but they have a 521. Cubs, 503. Red Sox, even 466 slug. The Twins, with Byron Buxton, 444. They are 5th in baseball. So really, really been a struggle for the Phillies now, that getting some power out of the outfield. Now, Nick Castellanos has turned it on big time. His extra base hit rate in June was over 50%. He's near the league lead in doubles now. So he's really getting back into what you expect from him, but a really slow start. The numbers rather are not going to recover. I did see an article on ESPN where they floated the idea of if the Phillies were going to potentially trade for Byron Buxton, what might an offer look like? They said it would have to be Andrew Painter and Justin Crawford. Now, Justin Crawford makes perfect sense. I don't know if I'm including Andrew Painter in a deal for a guy who is going to be hurt a lot. In theory, I know that whatever, things could change, but it hasn't changed to this point in his career unless they're buying that down. I think I've used this example in the past, but one of the guys who the Mets did this when they traded away Verlander and Scherzer after that huge spending spree a couple off seasons ago. They offered to pay those full contracts to get better prospects in return. So if you're trading Byron Buxton, giving up the face of your franchise essentially, and you're paying a huge chunk of that contract, yeah, okay, I'll consider putting in both of those guys, especially if we can expand the deal and add in Duran and Jax, because their focus has to be in the bullpen. It'd be interesting. That would be an interesting one. I mean, that fills a very specific need. It's center field help. It is slug in the outfield. It is, again, I would only do it for 2 of my top 3 or 2 of my top 4 guys if we're including Griffin Jax or Johan Duran in that conversation as well. Let's see, who else could be? A lot of people have mentioned that the Pirates pitchers, we've talked about in the past. Who is it? David Bednar and Dennis Santana. There was a rumor previously that maybe the Phillies were trying to acquire both in one deal. Again, I think that's not a bad place to start, is to try and get 2 guys. I'm not including, if I'm Philadelphia, I'm not including Miller, Crawford, Painter, Abel in a deal for those 2. Maybe Abel, if you're getting outbid and some of the other top targets are gone, maybe I would consider him. But starting pitching depth is extremely important, as we've seen. I know that he had some rough outings, but he took a no-no into the 6th inning last night for AAA Lehigh Valley. So if he can find it again and be a depth piece for them down the road, that may be more important to survive the regular season than going out and getting 2 guys who are both free agents at the end of the season. Not that they shouldn't target those guys, but I honestly do think that you can get it done for less than that. So maybe it has to be more. Maybe you're talking about Arun Escobar, Buckholder, or Rincones, a Seth Johnson, or a Gene Cabrera. Johnson's been helping you out of the pen, but if they view him as a starter, maybe you could talk about him. I don't know how far you're going down the list. I don't know if they're interested in Michael Mercado or Everson Castellano. Those guys I'm not as familiar with, so I don't know if they would really, really consider that. Also, one thing that is a good reference if you want, back to the plugs, Philly Sports Network, our guy Corey Nido does great work for us on the Eagles and the Phillies side. He's basically our go-to guy for minor leaguers, and does great coverage down in Lehigh Valley and Reading. He put out a piece earlier this week, who's hot, who's not. Obviously, Justin Crawford at the top of that list, hitting darn near 340. He's hit 442 over his last 12 games. A lot of ground balls, but we just mentioned Gene Cabrera, opening day starter for AA. He's been hot as of late. That's another guy that you could look at. Dylan Campbell's another guy, maybe as he rises up the list. Is he somebody who you could consider? Aiden Miller hasn't been that hot, but everybody knows his potential. Arun Escobar, again, he's had a pretty decent season. He's been a little cold lately after a hugely impressive start. But again, he obviously everybody knows his potential. He just cracked MLB Pipeline's top 100. So he's a guy who I think that should be in play for a lot of people. I'm trying to think of who else. I mean, like I said, Bednar and Santana, if you can get it done without giving up one of those top five guys, Eduardo Tait is the other guy in that top five alongside Painter, Abel, Miller, and Crawford. If you can get those two for a package that doesn't include any of those five guys, you don't say no. I mean, I think they want to shop one of those top five guys for someone who's more controllable, like a Clase, like a Duran, who's also controllable through, I believe, 2028. Jax, I don't know what his contract looks like, but that doesn't mean that he's not. I know that he's beyond this season, someone that they should be able to offer. So let's see. Trying to think of another. Looking at the Athletic, they feel like maybe Class A could be done for Aiden Miller. You got to see what as a starting point. Miller, an infielder, I think that they view him as a potential shortstop replacement, as they will likely have to move Trey Turner somewhere else in the coming future. He might not be right around the corner. I think Miller's probably a couple years away still. But he would fit perfectly in with their current time frame. Their quote-unquote window with this core is closing, but if he's ready right behind that core, we're talking within the next 2 seasons. If you could move him, or if Stott never bounces back and Turner moves across to second, if Turner goes to the outfield and Miller is your shortstop, at least for a few years before shifting to third, his body type seems to lend itself to being a third baseman long term, but they really like the improvements he's made at shortstop, so don't want to move him out of there yet. Get that value out of him while you can. Just trying to see if there's anybody else that really stands out as somebody who should be targeted by the Phillies. I mean, yeah, you have, Jarren Duran is potentially out there if the Red Sox fall out of it. Bregman, you could get really creative and shove him in left field. He feels like a guy who would be willing to make that adjustment on the fly. We talked about Emmanuel Clase. Duran, I mean, he's really, really good. F4 3.4 the last couple of years, about a 1 F4 this year. Duran's nasty. I mean, he's a guy who they should definitely look at, only 27 years old. Griffin Jax, he's an incredible setup man. So if they don't want to pay the price for Duran, Jax has been in that role before, and he'd probably be a little bit more comfortable in the way that the Phillies approach their bullpen, where it's just by committee. Maybe if they brought in Clase or Duran, I would imagine, similar to how they almost did with Estevez last year. They did for a little while when Craig Kimbrell was hot a couple seasons ago. They would likely commit to one of those guys. Jax might fit their current model better. He's also, a little bit older, so may not cost as much. Maybe if you don't want to go back from Minnesota, or they're not willing to part with Byron Buxton unless Andrew Painter is involved. We talked about pulling two guys from Pittsburgh. Maybe you could potentially target Jax and Duran from Minnesota. Yes, it would be a big asking price tag rather. But he's a potential option. The Orioles, a lot of people have thrown out Cedric Mullins. I don't know how I feel about that still. There's a lot of question marks out there. One guy that if Boston does fall out of it, I think that they would be crazy to not consider Aroldis Chapman. Say what you want about the guy off the field. On the field, he's an ageless wonder. It's incredible what this guy's been able to do. He's throwing 105 miles an hour at 37 years old. His movement gets better every season, it seems. So he's somebody that I think that the Phillies would target if Boston falls out of it. He's only controlled through the end of the season, so you wouldn't have to shop one of your top 5 guys. But yeah, it's going to be interesting. They've officially, at least it's been reported by Matt Geld, really reliable reporter from The Athletic, that they are willing to shop their more prized prospects to get somebody who's under some team control. And Clase and Kwan are both under team control. Jax and Duran are both under team control. And there's other options out there. If they want to add 2, 3 arms to that pen mix, there are options out there that won't cost you some of those guys. So it really does depend on the approach that they want. Do they want one lockdown guy and hope that you can pick up another guy off not the scrap heap, but shop lower in the market? It'll be interesting to see. That here at Alley Talk, we will be talking about it every single week, Fridays at 2:00 here on Philly Sports Network on YouTube, at Philadelphia SN on X, at Philly Sports Net on Blue Sky, at Kyle Fisher 45 if you want to find me and my writing and my reporting all throughout the season. In the off season, I do a little bit of NFL work as well, working with the NFL and CBS crew, producing for Tracy Wolfson down there on the sidelines. So you can catch some good NFL info from me there. Follow the entire crew at Philadelphia SN, though, because we have a standout Sixers, Flyers, and Eagles teams, as well as our stellar Philly staff over at Philly Sports Network. I want to thank everybody out there. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up. Make sure you leave in the comments who you want your targets to be. I'll comment on Twitter, have a conversation with you about those potential targets, who the Phillies may have to give up to acquire their services. And we will revisit this conversation after the All-Star break. We'll talk about how well the Phillies All-Stars did or didn't do in the All-Star game. We'll talk about any other potential news coming from Phillies land. Like we said at the beginning, they do have a series against the San Diego Padres this weekend. So make sure you have it locked into Phillies content and locked in all weekend long to Philly Sports Network. Appreciate everybody out there in YouTube land, all over the internet, wherever you're catching us, YouTube, X, my account, Philly Sports Network account. It doesn't matter. We love you all. We love and respect each other here on Philly Sports Network on Alley Talk. Appreciate you guys joining us, and we will catch you next week. Peace.